Welcome and thank you for joining us this Sunday, even for this broadcast. This is the second Sunday in a row that we are broadcasting through our YouTube channel and sharing a part of our sermon. I hope you enjoyed your time together as a family, even as you were meeting for Sunday service within your homes. Indeed, in the past 1 month, the world as we know it has changed. As Feb was ending, life was so different, We thought we would continue with life as usual. But a lot has happened, and even as you go to sleep, when you wake up, you don't know which reality you're waking up for. But we continue to encourage each other within the Lord, because we know that whereas many things are changing, our God has not changed. Whereas many things are being shaken, our God has not been shaken. And so we encourage ourselves within the faith. If you were with us last week, you may have noticed that we started with the one another's, and we are telling ourselves as a church that through this season, let us share the one another's, because that is what we need. If you've listened carefully to the messages that have gone out from the medical people, they've told us that part of the reason we have to protect ourselves in this season is not just for us, but for the people around us. Meaning, even when we talk of keeping ourselves safe, we are thinking about one another. And as a church, we are picking on that theme, which we find throughout the Bible, and Christians are encouraged to do, to challenge ourselves to consider one another. Last week, we talked about love one another, a command by Jesus taken from John 13. And this week, we go back to the same chapter. And if you've followed our guide, I'm sure you've had a wonderful time of looking at this story where we are challenged to serve one another following the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus walks into Jerusalem very triumphant, but he's sure about one thing, that his time has come to an end. Before chapter 13, each time people would tell Jesus to reveal who he truly is to himself, to them, he would tell them, my time has not yet come. But as this chapter begins, we are told that the time had come, and they are having the Passover meal, which has come to be known as the Last Supper. At this Last Supper, in Jesus' last few days, he gets up from where they were seated, where they were eating, and he begins to serve them. He picks up a basin, wraps a towel around his waist, and washes the disciples' feet, something that was not expected. In this particular culture, where washing of feet used to happen, because they used to move on dirt roads, the washing of feet was left to the lowest servants. So it was very unexpected that Jesus, who is the master of these people, should actually get up and wash their feet. At least it should have been one of the disciples, but not the master. But we know something about Jesus, and as we read through chapter 13, we get to realize why he did it. Jesus did what he did out of love. John writes, and he says this about Jesus in verse 1. He says, having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. So Jesus is motivated by love to serve his disciples. Love pushes him to get up and do the work of the lowest servant. When the Bible tells us that he loved them to the end, it does not mean that he loved them up to when his life ended. It tells us he loved them to the fullest. He gave them the full extent of his love. And that's what we see here. Motivated by love, Jesus gets up to serve people. It's very difficult to serve out of obligation. But when you're serving out of love, there is so much joy in doing that. But not only that, something else I notice as Jesus is serving, and I find this from verse 3. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. At this particular point, as Jesus gets up to serve his disciples, he is not serving from a point of weakness. He is not serving because he doesn't know who he is. He's actually serving despite knowing who he is. We are told that he has been given all authority. Everything has been put under his power. He is going to be with God. He has a unique position. But what does he choose to do? He chooses to serve even with knowing that. Jesus chooses to serve them with full knowledge of who he is. For many people today, when they know their position, that they've been given power, they've been given authority, they use that to come out of serving. When they say, don't you know I'm a child of the Most High God? It's an excuse not to serve. Jesus did it differently. Knowing that all things had been put under his power, he chose to serve his people. He chose to get down on his knees, put on white clothes, and wash the disciples' feet. What an example we are given. And that tells me that even as Jesus served, he was a humble man. And it's humility that got him on those knees. His position, that he had the power he had been given, could not make him proud, but he remained humble to serve them. You know, the Bible tells us that he humbled himself to dying on the cross. But it's not only on the cross when he humbled himself. He humbled himself even as he was washing the disciples' feet. The other thing we observe about Jesus is this. As he washes the disciples' feet, he's actually giving them an example of how they are to live their lives serving each other. In Luke chapter 22, where the same story is told, we are told the disciples enter that room arguing over who is the greatest, who is going to sit on the right hand of Jesus when he's in authority. And Jesus tells them that if you want to be great in God's kingdom, then you've got to be the servant of all. And he didn't just stop at telling them you have to be the servant of all, but at this particular point, he actually does it. He gives himself, he gives them an example that they are to follow. Many of us have very good intentions about serving others, about showing others love. But you know, good intentions are only as good as they sound. What really matters is our good intentions turning into actions. And Jesus shows them that in my heart I'm a servant, but even now my actions show you that I am a servant. And that's why he goes on to wash their feet, even as Peter objects. But Jesus says, no, I have to do this, Peter. It is for your own good. The other thing we observe, and this one we don't just observe, but Jesus teaches them, and he's teaching them and telling them that you have seen me do this thing. Go and do the same. Wash each other's feet. I love that Jesus gives them a charge, and the charge is this: you have seen me serve, may you continue to serve. He's not telling his disciples that, hey guys, I know you love me, I know you care about me, wherever you meet, wash each other's feet. I've seen people do it, and I appreciate it and what it symbolizes. But beyond washing of feet, Jesus charges his disciples and tells them, go and serve one another. And the serving one another is not just something we do for people that have more authority than us. Jesus, who had more authority, humbled himself and washed the feet of the disciples who were lower than him, who probably should have washed his feet. And so when we choose to serve, we should serve everyone, whether they are lower than us or whether they are above us. We serve them. That's Jesus' charge to us. His charge to us as well is this, that we are to take on any task that is there. You know, Jesus choosing, he could serve them in different ways. He could have served the food they're eating. He could have served the drink they're taking. But he picks on the lowest task, the one everyone ignored. I'm sure the disciples knew their feet were dirty and their feet needed to be washed. But everyone sits back, probably thinking, it's not me, I'm not the lowest here to do that. Jesus, who deserved the most respect, picks the lowest task and he serves them. As we look at the example of Jesus, these things stand out for us. Jesus served because he loved these people. And I believe he's calling on us. And later on we see it in John 13. He says, love one another just as I have loved you. So he was motivated by love. We should be motivated by love to serve others. Jesus had the heart of a servant. We are also called upon as his followers to have the heart of a servant. That will make it easier for us to serve. His intentions and his teachings became what he lived out for his disciples. Our good intentions are good, but let them become actions. Jesus charges his disciples to do what he has done. And this is my charge for you. Just as Jesus was seated comfortably, many of us may be comfortable within our chairs, so comfortable within our sitting rooms, comfortable that we don't have to go out to work. But there are needs around us. Jesus saw the need and he got up, he put on his work clothes and got to action. Now, because we are being discouraged from meeting in large numbers and keeping a safe distance, we may not walk into people's houses. But I want to challenge each and every single one of us here. Look at the need around you. Get up and do something about it. That's how you serve others. People have needs of socializing. They want someone to talk to. You could call them and talk to them. You could buy food for them, drop it at their doorstep. You could do something. Look at the need and be ready to serve, just as our Master Jesus served the disciples. May God bless you.